Welcome to today's talk, Tourism Around Lane County. We're here at the RV Supercenter, Guaranty's RV Supercenter in Junction City, and we'd like to thank Marshall White, Jolene Thompson, and the whole crew here for setting us up in this beautiful motorhome, recreational vehicle is probably the more appropriate term, to talk about lodging, and not this type of lodging, but this is an important kind of lodging that visitors use to come and visit Lane County and all of Oregon. But today we'll be talking with Jason Brandt, President and CEO of Oregon Restaurant and Lodging Association, about the topic of short-term rentals. And so we'll just jump right in.
Sure.
So before we talk about short-term rentals, though, why don't you tell folks a little bit about Oregon Restaurant and Lodging Association?
Sure. The Oregon Restaurant and Lodging Association, Andy, is the largest organization for the hospitality industry in our state. So we have about 2,600 locations, both restaurant, food service, and lodging establishments, ranging everything from bed and breakfast all the way up to our largest hotels and everything in between. And also vacation rental companies as well that manage, short-term rentals and residential zones throughout our state. So a lot going on, a lot of locations, a lot of members, and so there's never any day that doesn't come with a little sense of fun and excitement. No day is ever the same at ORLA. 2,600 members and about 18 staff, and we exist to promote, protect, and defend Oregon's hospitality industry.
Great, and I know a lot of our members are proud members of ORLA as well. So on the short-term rental topic, everybody thinks short-term rentals and Airbnb comes to mind, but they've been around for, I think, a dozen years or so now. There are people that preceded them in that space, but it's really blown up over the last few years. And I know even in Eugene, the city council now is talking about regulations to try to manage some of the issues around that. And I just wonder kind of what you're hearing from your members about the short-term rental issues, and we can talk more about some of the positives and negatives, but what are you generally hearing?
Well, first and foremost at ORLA, we feel short-term rentals are a part of the industry. So it's very important that any comments I give you start with the notion that they are a part of our association. They are welcome. Having said that, we have to make sure that everyone's on the same playing field. We're all following the same rules. So do short-term rentals that are rented out via Airbnb and other short-term intermediary platforms online have a competitive advantage? Yes, they do. Not always are they paying the appropriate lodging taxes. Not always do they have the right safety enforcement. So we have some real disparities in the marketplace that have to be corrected, and we need local government's help to do that.
And I agree with your statement about kind of welcoming those folks. We have members too that own short-term rentals, and they are an important part. We'll talk more about how important for some of the events coming to our region here in the years ahead. ORLA is active in a lot of legislative matters affecting the industry, and I think it was in 2018 the legislature passed some rules around the intermediaries, and I think some of us wish that legislation had gone a little bit further in terms of having some audit functions and things so we could really understand more about the lodging taxes and are we getting the appropriate amount for our communities and our regions. Do you foresee the state legislature taking that up, or is it really going to be on a community by community basis that we have to deal with it?
Probably the latter. The politics around the auditing function are probably more involved than we have time for on this video segment, but happy to talk to you more about that. I just don't see it happening in the current structure of the legislature, getting that piece of it through. Now, having said that, we have a lot of things that we have been able to get done in partnership with the League of Oregon Cities, so we're excited about those outcomes, one of which being House Bill 4120, which says that if you collect the payment for the lodging stay, you are also responsible for paying the lodging tax. That's very important. Before, we didn't have that really substantiated in state law. Now, we haven't actually seen that come to fruition in payments across the board throughout the state when that law passed. So there's still 4120 actually passed in 2018. So we're over a year later. and there isn't really consistency on that revenue being collected throughout the state. The best working example is actually in the city of Corvallis. They actually changed their definition of short-term intermediary to the same definition as the state. And so in the city of Corvallis, they've seen actually some really good outcomes in collecting the lodging tax revenue from short-term rentals through the intermediary platforms when those platforms actually collect the money, and that has really significantly changed things for Corvallis. So those of us at ORLA encourage folks to look to the city of Corvallis as a best practice for how to change your local ordinances to better align with the state law so that you can hold all those accountable in the lodging space for paying their fair share of lodging taxes.
And I think for a lot of us prior to 4120, it was a situation where each individual community or taxing authority really had to sign an agreement, right, with these intermediaries.
Yeah, voluntary collection agreements, they still exist out there. There's probably over a dozen in the state. The city of Corvallis never had one. Yet, because of House Bill 4120, they're seeing probably the highest level of success in collections. So another reason why they're a best practice.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's some positive outcomes generated by short-term rentals, obviously,
sure.
and it really increases our ability to host visitors, especially in an area like Eugene, Springfield, and we've got some big events coming up, the Olympic trials in 2020, and then the World Track Championships in 2021, and so that causes a lot of compression within our lodging association, our lodging members, and so Airbnb really fills an important role there. For these visitors who are coming, and so I think, you know, with those positives, governments in terms of the regulations are really looking at how to accommodate that as well. And are you seeing that in kind of the regulation and discussions that are happening around the state? I know with the Eugene City Council, that was one of the things that they're looking at in terms of changing the code, is to be sure that those situations when big events come, that people can use those platforms and really help out communities.
Yeah, it sure is a case-by-case basis on that front, because it's really hard to delineate between, we want, you know, to welcome all types of visitors into these residential zones, but only at these times of the year. The rest of the time, we want to make sure these zones are protected for livability purposes. Mm-hmm. That's a really hard tightrope to walk, you know, and so there isn't really a foolproof science to how to accomplish that from a regulatory standpoint that I've seen so far. Now, having said that, I think there's local governments that are doing a better job trying to figure out that balance. You know, we have a lot of coastal cities that are trying to figure that out when it comes to caps on a certain number of short-term rentals and the duration that those short-term rentals can be used, how much during the year. So there's a lot of different schools of thought on that, but no one overarching theme that I've seen to date.
Well, it seems to be a really challenging kind of environment. I heard just a news story today about, you know, these organizations that are actually building homes now, not just buying homes and then putting them into short-term rental, but building homes to put into the short-term rental market. And so I think it's a challenging environment because, again, from their world, they really see it as a great opportunity.
Yeah.
And yet, again, like you said, there needs to be a level playing field for everybody that kind of works in this space.
Well, and you can understand why those investments are happening, right? I mean, when you look at the math, you rent out your home or you build a home and you rent that out on a daily basis versus having it as long-term housing for someone in the workforce that's paying a monthly rental payment. Without question, you're going to make more money on that investment by renting it out on a daily basis. So it's this kind of this intersection point between livability concerns and political pressure of voters on elected leaders, kind of getting to this point, this crux where, you know, the free market and the lack of regulation and the investment strategies and opportunities are kind of coming to a head. Tough spot to be in if you're an elected leader trying to, you know, balance those things in that equation.
Yeah, I think that's the balance. You know, it has been sort of the Wild West, and then the regulations are swinging the pendulum maybe way too far the other way, and kind of where's that happy medium. So to wrap this up, I want to just allow you to kind of have the bonus question, which is, you know, what other kind of things would you want to talk about and kind of share with viewers today about this particular topic, and where they might be able to find more resources or get involved in these discussions?
I think the best thing to do is to take a look at what's happened in the city of Portland, actually. There's finally a settlement agreement between the city of Portland and Airbnb, and it really forces Airbnb to share their data as of January 1st, 2020, which is a transformative move for the lodging industry up north in Portland. And I think that that new normal in Portland should be looked at hard by local governments around the state to figure out how they too can have access to the same data, so that just as all the rest of the lodging industry is submitting their paperwork and proving who stayed in their hotels or other lodging establishments, and to justify why they're sending a check for a certain amount of lodging tax money, so too do the short-term rentals. And that's just fair. That's just what we need to get to. And so the data collection has been a real sticking point, but absolutely crucial to make sure that this lodging industry can flourish and flourish in a unified way.
Well, we really appreciate your time today.
My pleasure.
On our Talk 10 video blog, Tourism Around Lane County. Again, we'd like to thank the folks here at Guaranty RV Supercenters. You got to come out and check out these coaches. Jason,
unbelievable. Yeah.
Taking a walk around, and you can certainly see why people get excited about recreational vehicles and being able to see the country in luxury like this.
Absolutely.
So do come out and see them. Next month, we'll also be sharing a written blog with waste reduction specialist Angie Marzano from Lane County. Food waste is a huge issue, and another topic that you could probably talk a lot about from your restaurant member side. But we'll be talking with her about some of the programs that DEQ and areas around the state are doing to address food waste. So we'll see you then. Thank you.